4 years after its announcement, the Fallout TV show has finally arrived on Prime Video, and a day earlier than expected, no less. As many of you may recall from my previous video discussing the trailers, Fallout holds the top spot as my favorite video game series of all time. Despite initial reservations after viewing the trailers, I eagerly awaited the show's release, anticipating the adaptation of my beloved series into live action, at least by a major studio. However, Prime made the questionable decision to release the show late at night on a weekday, limiting my viewing to only a few episodes due to work commitments the next day. This meant dodging YouTube and social media to avoid spoilers. Eventually, I managed to binge watch the entire season. So, has watching the show alleviated my initial fears and concerns? I'm pleased to report that, yes, it has. However, I also find myself harboring a significant amount of disdain for the show. I realize this might sound contradictory, but it accurately reflects the dual nature of my feelings towards it. To delve deeper into my thoughts, let's quickly recap each episode of Season 1. I'll provide a brief summary of the plot, followed by what I enjoyed and what left me wanting. Finally, I'll conclude with my overall impressions of the season. Before we dive in, a heads up. This video contains spoilers. If you haven't watched the show yet, I recommend doing so before returning to hear my thoughts. Without further ado, let's explore what I liked about the show. Episode 1. The End. The series begins by showing us a little of what pre-war life is like in the Fallout universe, only for the war to go from pre to post as the bombs soon drop on Los Angeles. Cooper Howard, a famous actor and spokesperson, and his daughter are attending a party at the time and quickly make haste on a horse to try and get away from the nuclear blasts. We then cut to 219 years later, where we meet Lucy, a resident of Vault 33. She's arranged to get married to a resident of the neighboring Vault 32. However, she and the rest of the Vault soon discover that the residents of Vault 32 are actually from the surface. The group kills many of the Vault 33 residents before taking Overseer and Lucy's father Hank hostage and fleeing to the surface. With no one else willing to go after them, Lucy leaves the vault in order to find her father. Elsewhere in California, we are introduced to Maximus, a member of the Brotherhood of Steel. Despite wanting to prove his worth as a soldier, he's constantly beaten by the other initiates and assigned lower tasks. After his friend is injured before their assignment as a squire, Maximus is given the position instead. Him and his knight Titus are assigned to track down a member of the Enclave that is traveling through Los Angeles. Around this time, 3 mercenaries dig up a coffin containing the ghoulified Cooper Howard, now known simply as the Ghoul. They tell him of the bounty on the Enclave soldier, hoping to get his help in tracking him down. Howard kills the 3 mercenaries before heading off to collect the bounty himself. For the opening episode of the show, it does a great job of introducing the world of Fallout, while at the same time introducing new elements unique to the show. The pre-war segment at the beginning perfectly reflects the world we've heard about in terminals and holotapes, as well as what we saw in the opening to Fallout 4. The sight of Los Angeles being nuked is both frightening and also very beautiful, especially given the many beautiful buildings seen in the city skyline. And when we move from the outside to the vault, this very much continues. The aesthetics of the vault are almost the exact same as in Fallout 4, with a few unique touches to help it stand out. I actually really like the atrium/farm combination. It makes it feel more like a community. I also really like the idea of an interconnected vault. It's something that's been touched upon in other games and documents, but this is the first time we've seen it fully realized. Now that being said, I'm still not a fan of how the vault door is the same kind as Vault 76. Personally, I just think you lose a lot of the gear shape when looking at it from the outside. I honestly wish that the door used to connect the 2 vaults was the one used for the main door. It has the same design as the newer vaults, while keeping the door opening mechanism from the first 2 games. I also like seeing the Brotherhood going back to a more religious-like organization than the fully militaristic one seen in Fallout 4. That's not to say that there isn't any hint of military life in the Brotherhood. In fact, most of the initiates look and feel like newly arrived military recruits. I am disappointed that we still don't have an explanation for the West Coast's sudden use of an Prydwen-like airship and T-60 power armor, though from what we can hear it's sort of implied that the West Coast Brotherhood is now under the control of the East Coast Brotherhood. Maybe this will be explained at another time, but it's still irritating that we don't have a good explanation for this change. But overall, I was very happy with the first episode of the show. A nice introduction to the world of Fallout and a nice setup for what we can expect later in the season.
Get that jelly mold out of here!
Episode 2, The Target. As Lucy explores the wasteland for the first time, she comes across a man named Wilzig and his dog CX-404. Wilzig, a former Enclave scientist who's carrying an important artifact, tells Lucy that she'll need to adapt in order to survive the wasteland before leaving. Meanwhile, Maximus and his Knight Titus come across a Yaoguai while searching for Wilzig. Maximus is able to kill it, but not before it injures Titus, who angrily blames Maximus for the attack. Threatened with being killed for his actions, Maximus lets Titus die before taking his power armor. Lucy arrives in the junktown of Philly, meeting a few of its citizens including Ma Jun, who runs a junk store. Wilzig is also there looking for safe passage to Lee Moldaver, the leader of the group that attacked Vault 33. The three are confronted by the Ghoul, who demands Wilzig surrender himself, shooting his leg off to show he's not fooling around. A shootout soon begins between the Ghoul and the rest of the town. The Ghoul easily wipes out the others, but is then confronted by Maximus. Despite being outmatched, the Ghoul manages to incapacitate Maximus. Lucy assists Ma Jun in getting Wilzig a new leg, before agreeing to get him to Moldaver in order to find her father. Once out of Philly, Wilzig tells Lucy he's not going to make it, and that she needs to complete his mission. Revealing the artifact in his head, he has Lucy cut his head off to make it easier to transport. Later, the Ghoul leaves Philly to track down Lucy, now accompanied by CX-404. For our first full story out in the wasteland, the production team really went above and beyond for portraying post-apocalyptic California. From the barren and dusty stretches of land as seen in the original 2 games, to the more lush and green forests seen in 4 and 76. It really is the best of both sides of the country. I will admit I was nervous about what the town of Philly would look like. After all, the trailers and promotional images made it look almost like a Megaton clone. However, I'm happy to say that the town is very different from Megaton. All the buildings in town are very unique, and it just looks like a place I'd spend hours searching through if this was a game. Plus, the many callbacks to previous games was a great treat. The firefight between the Ghoul and the town was excellently done, with the perfect mix between Old West chaos and Fallout gore. Though one thing I wasn't happy about was the execution of flying power armor. Now yes, the power armor in Fallout 4 and 76 did have a jetpack modification. But the issue is that there is no jetpack on this armor. Instead, it comes out of jets in the arms. Power armor isn't Iron Man suits, stop trying to make them Iron Man suits. But overall, I was satisfied with this episode, as it really brought me back to the moments I first step out into the wasteland each time I first played a Fallout game.
For the tomatoes.
Episode 3, The Head. Back before the bombs dropped, Howard's wife Barb, an executive at Vault Tech, convinces him to become a spokesperson for the company. In the present, Maximus fights off a group of raiders who try to steal his power armor. He also hides Titus's death from the Brotherhood, pretending to be him. Thaddeus, a recruit who always bullied Maximus, is assigned to be his new squire, unaware of the deception. Meanwhile, Lucy travels to Hollywood Boulevard and encounters a gulper who attacks her and steals Wilzig's head. The Ghoul arrives and decides to use Lucy as bait to lure out the gulper. However, the plan fails and the Ghoul loses some drugs he was carrying. He subsequently takes Lucy hostage and heads out into the wasteland. Later, Maximus and Thaddeus encounter the gulper, successfully kill it and retrieve the head, with CX-404 now accompanying them. One of the things that sticks out to me about this show is that, barring Lucy, no one is truly a good person. And it's the post-apocalypse, that makes sense. This was clearly shown in this episode, where we see the Ghoul is not above using someone as bait or taking them hostage when they break something important to them. It's for this reason that I find myself really getting invested in the Ghoul and his story. The gulper shown here was a different design to the ones we saw in Far Harbor and 76, but in my opinion, they look even better. They're like some weird Frankenstein monster hybrid, and definitely something I wouldn't want to come across in the wasteland. Those mouth fingers are quite a sight, I can tell you that. though the way it was defeated doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It seemed like Maximus was just stopping the thing from eating Thaddeus when it suddenly threw up its guts. Wouldn't it have been cooler if it had swallowed Thaddeus only for it to die, its gut is split open, and out pops Thaddeus holding the head and a knife? I'm just saying, there were probably other ways to kill off a monster as cool as this. Of course, this doesn't take away from this very nice and fun episode.
Thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time.
Episode 4, The Ghouls. Back in Vault 33, Norm becomes suspicious of the vault thanks to some words from Moldover's captured goons. Him and his cousin Chet sneak into Vault 32, discovering that the residents didn't die from Moldover's group but instead killed each other over 2 years ago. Meanwhile, Lucy tries escaping the ghoul, even managing to bite one of his fingers off. He cuts off one of hers before bringing her to the remains of a super-duper mart to sell her to organ harvesters in exchange for more of the drugs he lost previously. He ends up collapsing from withdrawal. A Mr. Handy bot tries to dissect her, but Lucy manages to incapacitate it and kill the harvesters. She finds the chems the ghoul wanted and gives them to him before heading back out on her journey. I really enjoyed the mystery aspect of this episode when it came to Vault 32. We saw glimpses of what happened to it in the first episode, but this was the first time we were allowed to see exactly how bad things got within the vault. The super duper mart portion of this episode was almost perfect. The friendly atmosphere you get when Lucy enters the mart and encounters Mr. Handy, and especially the part where he makes conversation and repairs her finger. But after just one line,
I'm simply going to harvest your organs.
you know this place is fucked up. It's truly something I'd feel walking into Moe's pre-war buildings while playing a Fallout game. It kinda reminded me of the Cambridge Labs quest from Fallout 4. Speaking of which, the Mr. Handy prop is just perfect. From the arms to the thrusters, and even the little wipers on the eyes. It really does make me want to have one in my house. Though it is a disappointment that Steven Russell wasn't asked to reprise his role from the games, Matt Berry still did a more than satisfactory job. An overall fun, creepy, and interesting episode.
Oh, Bert.
Yes, I am Bert.
Episode 5, The Past. While bonding with Thaddeus, Maximus decides to tell him who he really is and what happened to Titus. Thaddeus refuses to keep his secret, then takes Maximus's fusion core, leaving him trapped in his power armor while he leaves with the head and CX-404. Lucy eventually finds him and gets him out, and he repays her by curing her of radiation poisoning. They decide to travel together in order to retrieve the head. Along the way, they come across the town of Shady Sands, the former capital of the New California Republic, which is now in ruins. Maximus reveals he used to live here before it was destroyed. Maximus gets injured in a fight by two fiends, so he and Lucy search an abandoned hospital for supplies. However, they end up falling through a trapdoor, which deposits them inside Vault 4. Back at Vault 33, Betty is elected to be the next overseer to replace Hank. She then decrees that half of Vault 33's residents will move to Vault 32 to repopulate it. Norm and Chet are shocked to see the carnage has been cleared from the vault. Okay, this is it. This is the episode that confirmed my worst fear about the show, the fear that had been building inside me since I first saw the trailer. Shady Sands is destroyed. Yep, you heard that right, people. Shady Sands, the first town seen in Fallout and the original capital of the NCR, is destroyed! I didn't want to believe it. I thought they'd have a great explanation as to why the name Shady Sands was seen next to that crater in the trailer. But nope, they did the unthinkable and destroyed one of the most important locations in Fallout. I can honestly speak enough on this topic to fill a whole video, and I probably will. So for now, I'll just say I don't like that Shady Sands is gone. And also, somehow, it's now in Los Angeles. And no, I don't want to hear in the comments how this makes complete sense, or it was obvious from New Vegas. I don't care, I still don't like it. Everything else about the episode was just okay in my opinion. Nothing too great, but nothing particularly bad either.
Everyone wants to save the world, they disagree on how.
Episode 6, The Trap. Lucy and Maximus are introduced to Bob the Vault 4 Overseer and Birdie, a survivor of Shady Sands' destruction. They discover that the residents of Vault 4 are a mixture of people with strange mutations and other NCR survivors. They retrieve Maximus's armor, but tell the duo not to venture to level 12. Maximus begins to enjoy vault life, while Lucy becomes horrified at the Shady Sands survivors ritual to celebrate the Flame Mother, who turns out to be Moldaver. She goes to level 12 where she discovers Vault 4 was once populated by scientists who performed experiments on some of the unsuspecting residents and those captured from the surface. She's then found and captured by Birdie and the other dwellers. Back in the past, Howard becomes concerned about his wife Barb's job at Vault Tech, but she assures him she's just trying to protect the family and the world. Howard is invited to a secret meeting about the Vault Tech conspiracy, which is hosted by a younger-looking Moldaver. The best way I can describe this episode is that it perfectly summarizes what a vault is. On the outside, it looks like a nice and peaceful place to live, giving you everything you could want in life. But once you stay there long enough, you begin to see cracks in the foundation. And soon, the awful truth about them is revealed. Another great part of this episode was how Maximus and Lucy reacted to the vault. At first, Maximus is the cautious one, while Lucy is happy to be there. But as we go on, we see Maximus begin to feel true comfort and safety in the vault, something he hasn't experienced in a long time, maybe even ever. At the same time, Lucy begins to see the problems with Vault 4 and how different it is to her own vault. It's a creative contrast that shows how simply looking at something differently can change one's whole point of view. This definitely sits highly in my ranking of the episodes, even if some of the dialogue is a little cringy.
You want to make my cock explode now? Sorry, intercourse?
Episode 7, The Radio. In a surprise move, the residents of Vault 4 decide to simply banish Lucy from the vault for disobeying their rules. We also find out that the original test subjects from the vault rebelled against the scientists, took over the vault, and the mutated humans there now are their descendants. Not understanding what's going on, Maximus steals the vault's fusion core for his power armor to save Lucy. After clearing everything up, the two leave the vault, which now only has enough power for a few days. Lucy convinces Maximus to give back the fusion core, leaving his now dead power armor behind. Meanwhile, Thaddeus abandons CX-404 at a red rocket and finds a portable radio to contact the Brotherhood. Lucy and Maximus catch up to him at a radio station, but soon discover he has been turned into a ghoul thanks to taking a mysterious potion from a snake oil salesman to heal his broken foot. Thaddeus flees as the Brotherhood arrives, and Maximus decides to give Lucy the head and allow her to escape while he uses a fake one to deceive the Brotherhood. In Vault 33, half the residents are sent to Vault 32, while Norm uses the Overseer's terminal to gain access to Vault 31 after finding out all previous Overseers, including his father, came from that vault. The ghoul, now recovered, finds Moldaver's location and discovers CX-404 at the Red Rocket, who decides to stick with him. In the past, Moldaver discusses the conspiracy about Vault Tech with Howard, explaining that the company is actively working to stop peace talks, and buying up companies that are working on technology that could potentially end the resource wars. She gives him a listening device to spy on his wife and find out the truth for himself. While the beginning of this episode was a good wrap-up to the previous one, I felt like the rest of the episode was just set up for the next episode. Which is good, I want there to be enough time to set it up, I just wish that we had a little more going on at the present. The revelation that Thaddeus is now a ghoul is probably the most baffling thing about this episode. We know there are multiple ways to become a ghoul besides radiation, as seen with characters like Hancock and Eddie Winter. But for Thaddeus to suddenly become one just from taking one chem is a little strange, though at the same time I'm reminded that something similar did happen to Hancock. But even that seemed a little strange and far-fetched to me, as was the idea that suddenly becoming a ghoul allows you to instantly heal all your wounds. Nothing like that has been seen in ghouls before, and seems like an oversight by the writers and producers. I also feel that Lucy and Maximus's relationship does go a little fast here. They've only known each other for a few days, and I didn't see one speech check happen between them. That being said, Lucy is kinda desperate to find love as seen in episode 1, so maybe it's not too crazy that she'd instantly fall for Maximus and vice versa. A small downgrade from last episode, but maybe a great intro to the last one.
You're a coward. You know that shit?
We all are, Norm. That's why we live in a vault.
Episode 8, The Beginning. Back in the past, Howard uses the listening device to listen in on a meeting Barb is having with the heads of America's biggest companies, including a future Vegas computer nerd. He's shocked to find out that Vault-Tec plans to initiate a nuclear war in order to eliminate their competition and build the world in their image, as well as allowing the companies to use the vaults to carry out experiments. In the present, Maximus's deception is discovered by the Brotherhood, but he's spared when he promises to take them to where the head really is. Back at Vault 31, Norm discovers that the Vault is part of a larger experiment to create loyal Vault-Tec super managers in order to one day lead the wasteland. The Vault is filled with frozen Vault-Tec executives that are thawed out in order to be selected as overseer of Vault 33 or 32. Lucy and Norm's dad, Hank, was one of these executives. Bud, the Vault's cyborg overseer, traps him in the Vault to keep him from revealing the secret, with his only option for survival being to use his father's cryopod. Meanwhile, Lucy makes it to the Griffith Observatory where Moldaver leads a group of NCR remnants. Moldaver retrieves the artifact from Wilzig's head, revealing it to be the final component in her cold fusion reactor, a technology she invented before the war but was taken over by Vault-Tec. She reveals to Lucy the truth about her father. His wife found out about survivors on the surface due to Shady Sands siphoning from Vault 33's water supply. When Hank tried to keep this hidden, she fled with Lucy and Norm to Shady Sands. Unable to convince her to return to the Vault, Hank stole the children and bombed Shady Sands to both silence her and remove any competition for control of the wasteland. The Brotherhood soon arrives and attacks the NCR remnants, who are severely outmatched. Maximus reunites with Lucy, who disowns her father for his actions. Hank steals a suit of power armor and tries to force Lucy to come with him. However, he's stopped by the arrival of the Ghoul, who forces him to flee after scarring his face. The Ghoul offers Lucy a chance to accompany him in order to find her father, discover Vault-Tec's true intentions, and find his family. Lucy accepts and leaves with him and CX-404. A mortally wounded Moldaver activates her cold fusion reactor, dying after seeing the lights come back on in Los Angeles once more. Maximus is given credit for killing her and declared a hero by the Brotherhood. As Lucy and the Ghoul leave Los Angeles, Hank arrives in the Mojave Wasteland and sees the city of New Vegas in the distance. Once again, after the more mid-episode that preceded it, I found this to be a great finale to the season. It brings together everyone from the previous episodes and gives each of them a chance to shine in their own way. From those in the Wasteland to Norm and Vault 33, everyone felt properly utilized this episode. I also really have to give credit to the visuals in this episode. The fight scenes between the Brotherhood and NCR are just fantastic, as is the fight between the Brotherhood and the Ghoul. Also, the inclusion of New Vegas at the very end was just the cherry on the cake. A perfect way to end the season while teasing us about what's to come. That being said, there were two things in this episode that I hated my first time watching, and at this point I'm still very sour on them. The first is the reveal that Vault-Tec was the one that started the nuclear war. This to me was a big mistake on their part, as part of the intrigue about that Fallout universe was that we don't know who dropped the bombs. It's been implied in a few games that it was China, but we still had no concrete answer. Now, of course, we never actually see them fire the first nuke, so it's possible they plan to do it but were beaten to the punch by someone else. But until we see a scene of Vault-Tec looking shocked at the world ending, I think we'll have to assume this isn't the case. I'm also disappointed on the state of the NCR that's implied in this episode. I might go into more detail in a special video, but what's important is that there's no way that destroying one city would completely wipe out the NCR. The NCR had multiple cities across 3 former US states, and even the sign in the show states that Shady Sands was the first capital of the NCR, meaning there were likely others. Even if they were stretched thin by the events of New Vegas, they would likely still have a somewhat functioning government at the time. Just think of our own world. Would the US crumble if DC or New York was destroyed? No. It would be crippled, but the government would still survive. So why is one nuke enough to kill the NCR? I hope they go more into detail about this next season. And we maybe get some more indication of what happened to the NCR or where they are if they're still around.
You're one to talk, Freddy boy. You could lose money running a casino.
In conclusion, while the Fallout TV show has its flaws, it ultimately succeeds in capturing the essence of the beloved video game series. The visuals, music, and action are faithful to the source material, immersing viewers in the post-apocalyptic world of Fallout, while narrative inconsistencies and creative liberties may frustrate some fans, especially me. The show's strengths outweigh its weaknesses. With a solid foundation established in Season 1, I eagerly anticipate future seasons and hope for further exploration of Fallout lore and character development. Overall, I give the Fallout TV show a solid 7.5 out of 10 and look forward to its continued evolution in subsequent seasons. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the Wasteland. Until next time, stay tuned for more Fallout content, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.
And so until next time, people, ta-ta and goodbye for now.